Hello and welcome to Craft with Ronnie. I'm Ronnie Johnson, an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I'm here today to bring you another of my Techniques Tuesday. Last week we worked on embossing, using an embossing folder and inking it to make a card. So I had shown a base that we were going to work with, and so I did a little adjusting. I used the same inking technique from last week. I used a early espresso base. Don't worry about the colors and the sizes because that'll all be posted on my blog later today, and that link is below this video. And I took a piece of Cajun Craze and I just put it in the embossing folder and this was where I made the change. I had put in early espresso ink in the previous one, and I decided it was just a little bit on the dark side, so I went with a little bit lighter brown. I'm really happy with the effect. But when it was all said and done, this was the card that I came up with. So today I'm adding a second technique to it, and that technique is where we take our leaves and we ink them, and then we put them in Versamark ink and clear embossing powder, and then heat set that to give them this really nice, shiny appearance. It just makes them look so real. So we're going to go ahead and get started first with our leaves. So I have one here that I'm just going to start with, and this one is crushed curry is the color. I've already die cut the leaf, and that comes from the Autumn's Leaves bundle, and there's quite a few dies in this, and it's a really pretty bundle. But I really especially like these little smaller leaves. I've done quite a few projects with them now. So I'm going to use the same color ink as the cardstock, which is crushed curry, and my dauber. Open it up. And what I'm going to do is I just want to give my my leaf a little bit of a pizzazz. So I'm bending it where all those creases are at, and I'm just adding a little line of ink along the crease lines. And the die actually cuts those little lines right into your leaf. That's pretty neat. And I'm going to do every one of these leaves. And then when I get that done, I'm going to come back and I'm just going to do the edges of the leaves. You know, kind of like how our leaves do in the fall as they start to turn. They don't turn all at once, a little at a time. I may just put a little inside of it just to give it a little bit of interest. So I'm done with that. I'll go ahead and get rid of my dauber and get rid of my ink. Then I'm going to bring in my Versamark ink. And we've worked with Versamark before. Versamark, and you can tell this pad, I've done this particular technique quite often with it. And I keep it just specifically for this because it does get discolored. But we've worked with Versamark before. Versamark is a lot like a glue, and it allows us to add embossing powder that we can heat set and make things really shiny. So I'm going to go ahead and drop my leaf in there, and I'm just going to press it really good and firm. And I'm going to pull it out. And for this, I really like to use something like an offset tweezer. It just gives me a little bit better control. I want to make sure I don't pull any of that Versamark off. And close up my ink because you don't want to get it full of the powder. Grab my little scratch paper here. I'm going to bring in my embossing powder. This is clear embossing powder. I just keep mine in a little tub, and one of my girlfriends gave me these cute little spoons. They're just the perfect size for this. I guess she got tired of using my broke off ones in classes. So I'm going to take my leaf and I'm going to just coat it really well with that powder. Knock off any excess. Do it again. Make sure I have a really good coating on it. I'm going to set the powder off to the side. Now the powder is one of those things you want to make sure you don't have your ceiling fan on. Yep, I speak from experience. It will go every which way. I'm going to bring in my heat tool. Now this might get a little bit noisy, but I hope not too bad. Make sure that I've got it heat set everywhere, and I do. It's nice and shiny all over. It's a really pretty leaf. And then I'm going to take my bone folder, one of those tools you just can't live without, and I'm actually going to turn it over, and I'm going to pull the whole leaf forward. This just gives a sense of movement, makes it seem a little more realistic. And then I'm going to turn it back right side, and I'm just going to turn those tips down a little bit. What's really cool about this, these leaves almost look like leather. And you know, it's kind of like a leaf looks in the fall. It gets that kind of crackly look, and I just love it. So I'm going to go ahead and set that off to the side. So for my card, one of the things that I wanted to do was use this ribbon. And this ribbon is out of the mini catalog, and it's a 2-pack. It's this linen ribbon, and there's also a really pretty copper ribbon. So what I did was I took a piece of it, and I know this is crazy, right? I took a piece of it and I cut it in half, and this is only 1/2 of it. I've used the other half on a different project, and I started to fray it. I tied it in a knot so that the frays wouldn't come apart, and I just started pulling the ends. And I pulled and I pulled, and see, some of it will start coming off. That's okay until we get to that very end. And then we can just start pulling this off. And we'll just kind of get rid of all that excess. So it just leaves us with nothing but these really neat little strings. We were perfect for a fall card. I wanted to show you how to do this because it's kind of hard to explain in the blog. It's much easier if you see it done. Sometimes you got to get a little forceful with it. The key is just not to try to do too much at once, and work your way down until all those excess pieces are out of there. And there you have it. And we're going to use that on the front of our card. We're just going to clean this off, put it off to the side. Going to get rid of this little piece of paper now. So clean that up later. And I'm going to go ahead and pull my card base in that I'd already prepared. And I'm going to start by doing some stamping. I have a little label here that's also in crushed curry. And again, I used one of the stamps out of this bundle set, this Autumn Leaves bundle. I have Early Espresso ink, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment on this label that I've already cut. It's really hard to do this without standing directly over it, but there we go. And it says, autumn teaches us that change can be beautiful. And that is very true. Autumn is absolutely my favorite time of the year. I love the smells. I love the colors. So now, before I put it on my card, let me bring this one back in so you can see it. I want to adhere my ribbon. Now, I may end up having, I will end up having to cut some of this ribbon off, and that's okay. So, but I know I want it down in this corner, and I found the best adhesive to put ribbon on with is our tear and tape. I'm just going to take a little piece of it. And they call it tear and tape because you can literally tear it. I'm going to put a little piece down here. I'm going to pull the back off. And this is where my take your pick tool really comes in handy. I'm going to grab that. Pull that. Oh, maybe. You have to make sure you really push down it so that it's stuck real well. Okay, and pull that off. I'm going to flip this back over so I can see it. I'm going to position my ribbon about how I would like it to lay. I'm going to push it right down into that tear and tape. And then just for good measure, I like to add one more piece of the tear and tape going in the opposite direction. And this, when I pull the backing off of it, will actually adhere my ribbon directly to the card when I add it. So to pop this element up, one of the things I learned was that a single dimensional just wasn't enough to cover that knot. So what I ended up doing was I ended up adding a couple dimensionals. And then pulling the backs off of them. And adding an additional one on top of each of them to give it the height so that it doesn't buckle where that ribbon's at. Keep that ribbon out of that adhesive. And then I'm going to pull those off. And I'm going to decide where I want my sentiment to go. Now I know this ribbon's too long. That's okay. We're going to come back and we're going to trim it up. As a matter of fact, I'm going to grab the scissors right now and do that. You can see I turned this one in a, let me grab those scissors. I turned this one in the opposite direction. It doesn't matter. You know, the cards are like, you know, to me they're art. And no two pieces of art are alike. And so I have no problem with the fact that my handmade cards are not alike. Just give it a little haircut here. Okay, we'll put that off to the side to be cleaned up as well. There's always that one piece, huh? Okay. Now, I want to go ahead and add the leaves. So for the sake of time, I went ahead and pulled in all my leaves, and I have already heat set all of these, including the one that we did. And I've added dimensionals to the back of all of them. And I'll just start playing with my layout, and I'll say what colors go well together. This one happens to be crushed curry. This is pumpkin pie. And I really liked how the pumpkin pie and the cherry cobbler kind of played off of each other. So I'm gonna put those right there, I think. You know, that's one of the nice things about this. You can come back and rearrange it several times if you want to. I think I like that. Give this a try. Actually, I think I like this a little bit better. Needs to come over a little, give me room. Okay, so once you decided how you want to lay your leaves out, just go ahead and start pulling off the dimensionals. Now, when you go to tuck them in, if that little branch gets in the way, just pop it off. It's not necessary. And let's see. And sometimes you have to do a little bit of that kind of surgery because the dimensionals are in the way or whatever, and you just don't quite have enough room. So I'll pull the back off this dimensional again and put that one right up here. Like I said, I really like the way these leaves look. They look so real. Sometimes you just have to take items that you have and make them into something new and creative. And I thought this was a great way to show you how to, a completely different way to use the heat embossing. So, beautiful card. All it needs now is a little bit of embellishment. And I found these rustic metallic adhesive back dots. I thought they were perfect. Since it is a fall card, I wanted things to look very rustic. I didn't want anything real flashy. So this is what I chose. I'm gonna go ahead and pull those out. I'm gonna grab that great take your pick tool that I sometimes forget to bring, but it really serves a big purpose. And I'm going to pick up a couple of these gems. I think I'd like one of these larger ones over in here. Kind of like that. And I wanted to point out, I think you can see the difference in the colors here. And part of the reason that there's a little difference in the colors is it really is all about how much ink did I use. Okay, up in here. How much ink did I use when I put it on the embossing folder? And you can tell I was a little more heavy-handed on this one than I was on the first one I made. I think sometimes just you get more comfortable with doing it. And again, that's that Distress Tile 3D embossing folder. So it's a really, again, I think it's a really nice card, perfect for autumn. So the original one I did, I opened like this, and I did another one of the flowers, and I just didn't curl it, and I left it flat, and I put it inside on a piece of Fairy Vanilla. For this one, I decided I wanted it a little bit different. That's one of the nice things about cards like this. You can turn them. This card could have been oriented this way, could have been oriented this way. There's just the opportunity to make it yours is endless. So I hope that you enjoyed that. It was a nice way to tie in last week's technique and add another twist to it. And I just want to remind everybody that the instructions for the card and the cutting instructions and the project product list will be available on my blog later today, and you can catch that link right below this video. Make sure you hop over there and check it out. While you're there, go ahead and check out my store, and always come join me on Facebook. Would love to have you join us there. Do a lot of different posts there. So until next Tuesday, I'm Craft with Ronnie. Have a happy crafty week.